This is kind of a strange book review here. This is Howard Marshall's book about fiddlers that he wrote last year, and I got a copy of from his book signing at the library. And so I got the book and I kind of put it aside because it's lengthy and scholarly. And I went to Nebraska to visit some people there. We started talking about music, about this song from more than 400 years ago, because the guy that wrote it died in 1612, so that's more than 400 years. And so one of my friends, I was trying to play it for him straight. Actually, I was whistling in Nebraska because I didn't take my instrument, which is not a violin or fiddle, it's a bass recorder. And so I was whistling this song, but I'll try to play it straight here. And then I was saying, you know, I've heard this thing with some variations. I heard it on the radio maybe 30 years ago. And that's not really how I whistle it, because I made a bunch of mistakes there. And, well, let's see if I can whistle it. And I asked them, and they said, that's not the same thing. It can't be. It has nothing to do with each other. And I was going to ask somebody else later, and it got so late at night that I couldn't even whistle because the air is dry in Nebraska. And in fact, it was really bugging me a lot. And then I started thinking, well, you know, the answer's right here in this book on this shelf. And the song I was just fooling around with isn't in this book, because it's mostly about old-time fiddle songs from Missouri, some of which I've heard and some of which I haven't. But that first song is mentioned in this book. There was this cartoon where there's this tall, skinny wolf goes around whistling and looking for sheep to eat. And the sheep herder keeps trying to get rid of the wolf, who keeps going around whistling. And the song he's whistling is, I started looking and I finally found out about that song. The name of it is either Kingdom Coming or The Year of Jubilo. And that's one of the songs that is mentioned in here, because he's got a chapter about songs from the Civil War, and that's a song from the Civil War. And I had even found the words on the internet, and he doesn't have the words in here, but he mentions that the words were kind of considered silly and they got sanitized. And he talks about other songs that got sanitized, and he's got everything in here. He's got a picture of Harry Truman playing with Jack Benny. He sort of mentions the Star Spangled Banner, which I could try to play. Right. Now there is a CD in the package here, which has 39 different songs on it. And they being fiddle songs from Missouri. I hadn't heard most of them before. I listened to them because, well, I'm not a fiddler and not from Missouri. But he's got them listed on the CD in chronological order. He starts with the ones from the 1950s first and ends up in 2012 at the end of the CD. And some of these are people that I've actually met, just a few of them. And there's other people mentioned in the book that I've actually met. It starts out with notes on old-time fiddling and people's history. And he's got fiddle music in the Old French District, Going West, the Old Stock Americans, African-American old-time fiddlers in Missouri, the legacy of German-speaking Missourians, music and memory in the Civil War era, the Irish and the railroads in post-Civil War rural Missouri, Indian old-time fiddlers, musical literacy in Victorian times, traditional fiddling and the dawn of jazz. And then we got all this discography and notes, footnotes, this vast index here. I mean, somebody could really use this for scholarly purposes or just for learning about Missouri fiddling. One of the nice things Howard talks about in his book is called rough or smooth. He says, indeed, it may be that there are just two styles of fiddling, rough and smooth, but those terms are loaded. Rough has the wrong connotation of crudeness, whereas smooth may be assumed to be superior. The dichotomy plays on stereotypes. Smooth playing has always been admired, and smooth players often get the most respect, whereas rough fiddling has sometimes been associated with poorly trained fiddlers. And he talks about some people have used the word vigorous as a more polite way of saying rough. And then another way musicians talk about style is to talk about playing clean, a word synonymous with smooth. And he says playing clean means smooth bowing, being rhythmically precise, using good intonation, being in perfect tune, being free of gross errors, and being free of bowing licks or ornaments that most fiddlers believe do not belong. Well, that makes me feel great because, you know, no matter how hard I try, I wind up with gross errors. Anyway, he talks about some of the songs Lewis and Clark would have played on the, well, not Lewis and Clark themselves. The guy that played the fiddle was, well, let's see, who played the fiddle? Pierre Cruzat and George Gibson, two men who happened to play dance tunes on the fiddle. Anyway, it talks about the Corps of Discovery and the two fiddlers that played on their trip west, named Pierre Cruzat and George Gibson, and a bunch of stories about them and the songs they played. And it talks about people going west and taking music west with them. And it mentions Mark Twain and the people that lived at the little house on the prairie. And it talks about the music of the Civil War era. And it's got a quotation from Robert E. Lee that says, "I don't believe we can have an army without music." It does mention that some of the songs that they try not to keep them from playing songs that would make them feel more peaceful and not want to go commit the military things they had to do. Here's another song I've been wondering about for a couple of decades. I first heard it in Fairbanks with some clumsily attached words. To me, I'm sure it's a way older song. I'm just taking a wild guess. It might be from around 1900 or something. And I've never heard it before or since. Who knows? That song might be in this book, because a lot of this stuff, I don't know this stuff. And there was another song the night I got this book from Howard that'd been bothering me for 30, 40 years. And I asked Howard what it was, and of course he knew, because it's a famous fiddle song. Anyway, when I was talking to Howard, I had to whistle it because we was in the library, and I don't take my bass with me when I go to the library, usually. Anyway, Howard said that is the Girl I Left Behind, which is one of the songs they talk about it doesn't matter to me where it came from. I think that's part of the message of this book, is that that music's always changing and you can't tell where it came from. And some people are going to think it came from one place, and some people's not going to insist that it came from something else, and maybe I think some people are just hearing things. Anyway, the title of this book, Play Me Something Quick and Devilish, seems to me, well, there's three good things about it. One is it describes that some of the Missouri music, as far as I can tell, may have been quicker than some of the music further west. And the devilish, because there was lots of church people objected to some of the dancing and fiddling and stuff. And then it's a title you won't confuse with other books, because there's not many other books with a title anything like Play Me Something Quick and Devilish.